got a little something working. He's not just there to sling popcorn. This guy knows a thing or two.
Doing some customer service, taking care of Jeeps.
All right, let's talk edges in this NFL draft, which is 10 days away. So see if you agree to these terms. Abdul Carter out of Penn State is going to go in the top 3. And so we don't need to waste any time talking about him.
Correct.
He's amazing, by the way. He's going to be an awesome player. He's just not a player that's going to play for the Commanders on his first contract. And then I would say Jalen Walker, the edge from Georgia, is also going to go in the top 10 probably. If he doesn't and he slides, he's not sliding out of the top.
Yeah, it's still a teens.
15 or whatever. He's just not an option. So I think you could rule those two guys out for Washington.
I agree.
Other than that, though, when you talk about Mykel Williams from Georgia, Shamar Stewart from A&M, Mike Green from Marshall, Donovan Eszaraku from Boston College, James Pierce from Tennessee, any of the other guys, I think they are in play in the middle to back end of the first round, and at that point, it's a little bit of a crapshoot.
This is the shuffle up and deal eye of the beholder type part of it, right? Where you have elite athleticism, elite traits, elite production with the guys at the top that you mentioned. Then there's a wrinkle with everybody. For some, it may be an off-the-field thing. It may be a potential, I don't know, something that's kind of nagging that might lower some folks in their eyes. With Shamar Stewart, for example, it's not a ton of production that doesn't match the athleticism, the incredible scores that he put up in terms of the shuttle, the broad jump, the high jump, and everything else. One of the elite athletes ever at almost 270 pounds and 6'5", and yet he had a sack more than our show put together. So this is where it gets really interesting.
But do you agree with the premise that like these 5 guys roughly, they're going to float around?
Yes.
We don't really know who goes where.
That's right.
What order they're going to be.
Every mock you've seen 3 of those guys that we're talking about, again, Pierce, Stewart, Mykel Williams, maybe Mike Green or Eszaraku, be in the teens. I've seen them in the 20s. I've seen guys slip into the second round. This is a fascinating range.
So I thought we could introduce everyone to the edges today because I think you hear a lot of talk about them, and we just drop these names like they're household NFL players. And a lot of our listeners just don't watch a ton of college football and maybe haven't seen these guys. So Mykel Williams is someone whose name you've said a couple of times. This is a 20-year-old junior from Georgia. He is 6'5", 260, absolutely massive.
Huge.
Big-time talent. He's one of these guys, though, that I will say, when you're going to look up the resumes and the write-ups on any of these players, with some of them, it's all about what they've done in college. The numbers, the stats, the production, how they've played. With him, it's what star recruit he was and, how much every team in the SEC wanted him and, what he looks like. He's straight out of Central Casting. Because some of the numbers just have not been there. 5 sacks last year were a career best. 9 tackles for loss last year were the best it's gotten for him. His 3-year sack totals at Georgia, 4.5, 4.5, and 5. So this is not an impressive statistical resume, but I will tell you, and I'm not going to use the word tape. I'm not putting on the tape. I'm going back and I'm watching highlights. And the cool thing is now that you can get actual full games and watch these guys too. But when you go back and you watch him, my God, is he big. He has a couple of plays where he just engulfs people, blows someone up in front of him, gets in the backfield, and then completely swallows up a ball carrier. I get it. I get why people dream on this guy a little bit because at 6'5", 260, he moves really well, and he kind of looks like a traditional defensive end who could stand up and move around.
Yeah, like old school hand in the dirt guy who knocks around tight ends, makes quick work of double teams, really good at setting the edge as a run defender. I mean, you can see it with that size, and he's got a frame where, I've read a few different scouts and people put these things together. He can add more productive weight probably as he gets into the pros. If that's something that somebody wants him to do, to be kind of an every down defensive end, or if you want to be more of an edge, you don't have to have him bulk up a little bit, but the toolkit, I think, is there for him, which is why I don't say consensus, but he's the most likely to be the third edge off the board.
Which is why I start with him. I think he'll probably not get past the Falcons at 15, who desperately need pass rushing help.
And have for a while.
I don't think Jalen Walker will be there. We know Abdul Carter will not be there. So it would make some sense to me if they took Mykel Williams. The only way he gets past them to me is if one of the other guys they just happen to like better goes there, and then he goes shortly thereafter. But look for the Bengals, especially if Trey Hendrickson's still on the trade block. They're at 17. The Bucs at 19 would make a lot of sense as well. All right, that brings me to another guy that I think could go somewhere in the middle of the first round. but there is a real chance he could fall to Washington, and that is Mike Green. So Mike Green shares a name with the longtime former Capitals defenseman. That's kind of the end of the comparisons. 21-year-old edge. He actually is a local guy. He started his college career at the University of Virginia and finished at Marshall. He grew up in Newport News, Virginia. He went to Lafayette High School in Williamsburg. You ever been to Lafayette High School?
I never have.
I went down there for a semifinal state championship football game when the King George Foxes were playing at Lafayette back in probably 2000, 2001. Jermon Bushrod was on that squad. It would go on to play for the New Orleans Saints for many, many years. But Mike Green just completely exploded on the scene last year at Marshall. He is not as big or like what I call that central casting size. He's 6'3", 250 pounds. So he's got a little bit of a tweener look to him, in my opinion. But man, oh man, was he productive last year.
Super productive.
Led the nation with 17 sacks, had 23 tackles for loss. So if you want a guy who gets sacks at the college level, who puts up numbers in college as a pass rusher, this is your bogey. A little bit of a one-hit wonder. That is a concern I have. He had 4.5 sacks and 9 TFLs the year before at Marshall and did even less than that in his first year at Virginia before transferring. So it's basically one big-time college season, but it was big, big, big time. Sun Belt Player of the Year. Really, really strong dude, too. He did 28 reps at 225 pounds. Grades out very well against the run. I think he'll be able to hold it, anchor at the position, not get blown off the ball. I really, really liked when I watched Mike Green a lot this weekend. I really, really liked him.
So this is my guy. If it happens, if it's possible. Now, I will say there have been a couple off-field things that have nagged him and have been sort of a cloud hanging over him over 2 different stops. One is from high school, which I don't put as much credence in. The one was at the University of Virginia. Exonerated of those things, but it's still kind of a cloud and something that he's had to explain. And I don't know how teams are viewing it. I don't know if it's one of those things that it's coming up again because teams want him to fall so they can draft him. I don't know. Just offering the full panoramic here. But in terms of football, I don't know anything about anything other than that. What I've watched, what I've seen, what I've read, this looks like it. This, to me, is the guy that somehow, some way, if he was there at 29, hyper productive. It's not as big as some of the other defensive ends that you're going to see, but doesn't get pushed around either. Can hold his own at the point of attack to get to the dessert. AK, you got to eat your vegetables on first down, stop the run. They're going to test you. Now let's get to 2nd and 3rd and long and have him hunt. Like, to me, this is the guy that I've got circled.
Yeah, I'd be very, very happy if he was the pick. If you look at pass rushes with the pressure, the percentage of the time when you're rushing that you get pressure this year in college football, he was 5th in the nation at about 18% of the time. In fact, if you look at pressures per game this past season, again, he was the national leader in sacks. He ended up 3rd at 4.54 sacks per game. Pressures per game this year, behind only 2 edges, one of whom we're going to get to in 1 second. But my only concern, I guess, other than the one-hit wonder element to this thing, still, though, when you have that kind of year, I don't care if you only do it once. Mm-hmm. You got it in there.
Yep.
Marshall, it wasn't in the SEC.
Right.
It was not in the Big Ten. It was at Marshall. That gives me slight pause because you are going up when you're Marshall football. Look at their schedule. Yeah, you play some really good teams. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like you got Florida one week and then A&M, and you're playing Old Dominion and Texas State and Coastal Carolina and Georgia State and Appalachian State, Georgia Southern. Like, when you level up and have your game of the year, you're playing JMU. Mm-hmm. And last time I checked, their tackles aren't starting all over the NFL. Great program, but that is something to acknowledge, I would say.
No, it's real. That's the only thing that waters it down. You some guys come out of those small schools, DeMarcus Ware from Troy or Troy State, whichever one it is, and other guys come out of those small schools they're never heard from again. This is where the combine and some of those testing and some of those visits and some of those workouts can really kind of play into that to supplement, as you said, against lesser competition.
All right, next guy I want to hit on here who's got a chance to very much still be there because the more mocks I'm looking at, he's going in the late first. So the general consensus is Carter Walker, long gone. Michael Williams, almost certainly gone. And then we'll get to some of these other names, but Shamar Stewart, Mike Green in that tier. One of the guys that is falling to Washington quite a bit on mock drafts right now is Nick Scorton, who is a 20-year-old defensive end at Texas A&M. He started his college career at Purdue before transferring. He's listed similarly to Mike Green, 6'3" and 257 pounds, former second team All Big Ten, who broke out and became first team All SEC last year. Not big time sack numbers in college. 12 games, 5 sacks, batted a couple balls down, forced a fumble, 14 TFL. So he did not dominate necessarily. Did have a 10 sack season 2 years ago. So there's a multiple year stretch here over a couple programs where he has produced, but it never to the level of some of the elites in college football statistically. The size when he actually was measured in was as if he grew closer to 6'4" and added like 15, 18 pounds. I mean, some people are saying he's going to play around 280 pounds, which if that's the case with his length, there's a little bit of like a Montez Sweat action figure feel to him, I think. I think that'll help him against the run, just being able to keep people from getting in on his chest and engaging. But 78 pressures over the last couple of years for him.
So this is a guy that, as you said, is falling down boards. It seems like now, maybe the lack of production, most recently in A&M, and his running mate on the opposite side, again, Shamar Stewart, who we've referenced, didn't have a ton of production as well. So maybe there's something in the water there. But as you said, looks the part certainly. And I think a lot of teams are going to be intrigued by him. You could kick him inside on passing downs, maybe as kind of like part of that NASCAR package sort of deal. If you want 3 or 4 pass rushers out there, as you said, sets up pretty well against the run. Maybe not as sexy as some of the other names, but has been disruptive at times with some of the TFLs and a little bit of a push inside. So that's an intriguing one, especially if they move back a little bit, right? Because I think there'll be enough numbers where you could get Scorton at 29 probably get him at 39, 41, somewhere in there. And again, according to what people are saying with mocks, you never know.
Here's another defensive end that I actually think, if you want to talk likeliness, will be available and maybe has the highest odds of being the pick if they stick and grab an edge. Donovan Eszaraku, 21-year-old defensive end, senior player at Boston College this year, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, first team All-ACC, listed about 6'2" and 250, tied a team record with Harold Landry, who's gone on to have a very good career, the Tennessee Titans longtime pass rusher, at 16 and a half sacks this year. Huge season. Again, you like production? Mike Green, Marshall, Donovan Eszaraku, BC. Those are probably your guys. He had 21 tackles for loss this season as well. Now, another guy who made a leap out of nowhere pretty much because he had 2 sacks last year, did have 8 the year before, so he's got a couple years in college where he put up some big numbers. But you got to look at, I know that the sacks are not the end-all be-all. Sometimes you're rushing better, you're not getting them. But a sandwich season there where he had 2 when he played a full year is kind of odd. But Eszaraku, I think, could be there. And like Mike Green, I would be perfectly fine with. Now, there are plenty of times when you watch him and he struggles getting blown off the ball.
He's a little undersized.
He's smaller. And I think there's like a Dante Fowler feel to him for me, where I'll bet you at some point in his career, the book ends up being not great against the run or not someone who's going to play all downs, but dang, do I like him rushing the quarterback. And he's relentless and he's got speed and he can get around the edge and he's got a spin move. He does some different things that I saw. Like, I actually think he could end up being a really, really good pass rusher.
Yeah, all those cliched things that they're going to say on draft day about the motor and about the energy and the toughness. And, it's one of those leaders, right? A 4-year guy at Boston College. Seems like the kind of dude that might, that Adam Peters might give the local 53 tag to, right? Just in terms of the things that he did in school and showing up and just doing the right stuff all the time. I do worry a little bit about the frame and, again, on first down, because that was such a weakness for this group. Normally, I don't think about that. Normally, I'm like, can you rush the passer? I'll figure the rest out. But kind of thinking about what they need and what might fit well. Maybe, listen, he's got long arms, so maybe they think he'll grow into someone who's serviceable enough in that regard as a run defender. But to me, the premium thing is how relentless he is as a pass rusher and some of the moves he's got. He's a little undersized in that regard, but gets home.
Let's see who we have not hit on here of the kind of 7 in the first round mix most often. Shamar Stewart, we haven't really talked about. You've named him a couple times. Stewart is a guy that just hasn't gotten sacks in college, but everybody loves the skill set, the size, and the measurables. He is 21 years old. He's from Miami, Florida. He's 6'5", 267. I mean, anything you want him to do from like a combine standpoint, he'll do it.
Action figure, man.
Doing it. The problem is, look at the back of the football card. 1.5 sacks each of the last 3 years in college, and TFLs of 4, 2, and 6. Now, I could look really stupid with what I'm about to say, but I'm out. I don't have to watch all 37 of your career games to know that you have a combined 4.5 sacks in 3 years. And I know that that's a silly way to do it, but there's something, the dots are not being connected there. So I'm moving you down my board. You just have to have more than 4.5 career sacks at that size with that program for me to be interested at 29.
He's a get you fired down in both directions, right? You pass on him because of lack of production. He goes on to be a star, or you invest heavy stuff because of the upside and he doesn't do anything because he doesn't produce. You never know. This is one of those puzzle pieces that's really, really hard. I always default to, I understand you don't have to set a pass rushing record for me to be interested in you, or a receiving record or a quarterback record. I just can't have that little production. I can't explain that away. Now, with a second round pick, with a third round pick, by all means, you're drafting traits at that point. Let's get after it. But with my first rounder, doesn't feel right to me. So I'd be one of the passers.
The last one was a late first round projection. Here's James Pierce, the defensive lineman from Tennessee, 10 sacks, which was right at the top of his program and was third in the SEC 2 seasons ago, had 7.5 sacks this year, 19.5 over 3 years with the Vols in the best conference in America. Also had 15 and 13 tackles for loss, so a total of 28 over the last 2 years for him. So he lived in the backfield, has also made a couple of plays, had a couple of interceptions, 4 forced fumbles in his career. Pierce, more interesting to me than Stewart, of those huge central casting scout type guys, 6'5", 245, played in the Orange Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, and was a 2-time first-team All-SEC nominee as well.
Had the quickest 10-yard split among any of the edges, was the only edge to run sub 4.5 at the combine. The athleticism backs it up. I mean, he's tall, kind of that
and
lankier
some
school.
Production.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He produced.
Not huge, but pretty good, I would say.
He's the
He's like a combo of the two.
Yeah. So the ideal run defender, I feel like I'm over talking about run defense for someone that cares about a lot less than pass defense, but there are two kinds of run defender to me. It's that like constant, immovable object, push people around, you can't knock them around. Or the 1A of that, the kind that I like, is you might get him on a couple times, but that third time he's going to disrupt your play. He's going to knife into the backfield and tackle you for loss, which he's done a few different times. That kind of defender. Yeah, again, one off-field incident has people questioning some things. It was a speeding incident where it's been expunged and he's gotten through it, but that's one of the things that's knocked him down at some boards a little bit too. But that's a guy I wouldn't mind there if he's available in the late first round.